we're going to talk about being mindful, the importance of being aware of what's going on now. Initially, let's talk about our realities in this world. There's everything changing everywhere all the time, and there's a cause and effect relationships in what we do. Everything we do has an effect on something else and ourselves. Dependence of everything. Everything is related to everything else. We're not separate entities, and they're not separate from us. And there's no unchanging constant in anything, including ourselves. Everything is changing. And all our actions have an effect. When we make actions with our body, speech and thoughts, then these have effects on our body, ourselves, our speech, and what happens outside. And what we say and do and think based on our state of mind at that time, and they affect our subsequent states of mind. The effects can be beneficial or helpful to us, called effective, or harmful or afflictive to us and to others. And our own happiness depends on our state of mind. And the cause of happiness is within ourselves, but unfortunately we tend to blame things outside or other people for our happiness. How we react to external circumstances depend on our outlook and our attitude and our emotional habits. Whether we easily get cross or we feel unhappy, what else types of emotional habits we have. Our state of mind determines how we see the world and others around us. It colours and changes our experience. When we're happy, we see the world one way. When we're unhappy, we see the world another way. When we're cross and angry, we see a world another way. When we're kind and generous, we see a world a different way. And how we feel about the world and our others and ourselves colours and changes our experience. How we react to what we see and our subsequent and consequent relationship with others depend on our state of mind. And our state of mind is determined by our mental habits, our feelings at the time, what's happening in our body at the time, whether we've got a tummy ache or whether we're feeling sleepy, or we're feeling fit and healthy, our past experiences in a similar situation, our beliefs, our upbringing and our family, our education, our community environment and our customs, and our friends and our peer groups. All mental states have 5 factors about them. They're based on being aware of what's happening in our sense organs, the contact with those sense organs and the feeling that arises, discernment of those feelings and thoughts, whether we like it or don't like it, and what we do, the choice of our action, our volition. And to live happily, we should do beneficial actions. We should be careful and cautious of what we do, and mindful of our behavior patterns and values. We should be aware of our own actual behavior, guarding against thinking and saying or doing things that we would later regret. And we should base our actions on self-respect, personal integrity, and care for us. And to be motivated to do this, we must become clear about our lives and our happiness and our suffering, understanding our situation following our birth and when we get old or when we get sick and we die, and see that we're living in this constantly changing environment. We must become clear about what life is really like. We should come to see and understand ours and others' instant reactivity to liking and not liking, and how this changes the pictures of the mind has of the world, and causes us to behave with attachment in ways that result in unhappiness. We should choose things that are going to make us happy, not unhappy. Then we come to practice, to change ourselves. We come to understanding, but by removing this habit of reacting with likes, no likes, immediately all the time, our mind become more peaceful, and we can come to see things more clearly and unbiasedly, and choose to act in beneficial ways that result in happiness and well-being for ourselves and for others. And to do this, we should practice to act in ethical ways, practice to watch and control our thoughts, and deepen our understanding of how things really are. And to practice and act in ethical ways, we understand that there is effect created by all our actions. All these have effects on ourselves and others. Beneficial thoughts, speech and actions to ourselves and others result in beneficial results to ourselves and others. Harmful thoughts, speech and actions to ourselves and others result in harmful effects to ourselves and others. It's quite straightforward. Beneficial thoughts, speech and actions benefit ourselves and others. Harmful thoughts, speech and actions harm ourselves and others. So we must know how to watch what we are thinking, saying and doing, and choose what is beneficial and stop anything harmful progressing. Once we know how, we must practice to do this. So we've got to practice to watch and control our thoughts and our mental states, which means watching what happens with our awareness, what's happening in our sensory organs, what's happening when things contact us, what feelings they arise from that contact, what thoughts arise, and then discerning whether we're having thoughts of liking or not liking, and then what action we're going to take following that. We can make the choice of what action we're going to take. And mindful meditation is a technique to help us become aware of what's happening in our mind. And we then use it to help us cultivate beneficial thought seeds in our mind, and then transform our thoughts and subsequent speech into actions to more beneficial ones. And mindfulness meditation is a technique that's being used increasingly across the world in education systems for social and emotional learning. For example, in the United States, the Collaborative for Academic, Social and Emotional Learning in Schools has promoted social and emotional learning skills in schools and spread throughout the UK, Israel, Singapore, Latin America, Scandinavia, Germany, Japan, New Zealand and Turkey, and is promoted by UNICEF and UNESCO. Another program is called Mind Up. It's being used by many schools across the United States, and this program is divided into 3 areas: quietening and sharpening the mind, directing thoughts and feelings, and being mindful of each other and of the world. They reviewed 3,000 students, and they found the program had promotion of well-being. The promotion of well-being is fundamental to improve social and emotional skills and attitudes, and reduction of conduct problems and emotional stress in school students. It's also mindfulness meditation and other types of meditation are also practiced in schools across Australia. For example, 31 Catholic schools in North Australia had 10,000 students between the ages of 5 and 18 practicing meditation. This is focusing meditation. And when I was in Queensland Health some 6 years ago, we did a study and reviewed this program and found the effects of this program: increased relaxation and feelings of calm among students, reduced stress, reduced anger, and improved their concentration. In other words, they could study better. And many of the students also reported that they had experience of meditation at school had prompted them to meditate outside school, particularly in times of stress. And this improved family life and their social interactions. What flows through the attention when we see something actually changes the way our brain is connected, actual connections amongst the neurons in our brain. And this has been seen by MRI, magnetic resonance investigations, and other ways of looking at brains today. And we've seen that much of things we've noticed in how people change actually cause the actual brain to change in itself in these ways. So controlling attention is the most effective way to change the brain connections. And attention can be trained and strengthened like any other mental ability. And mindfulness is well-controlled attention. So the best way, the most strong way to change the connections in the brain is making people mindful of what they're doing. Just watching what they're doing. Be attentive. And the front of our brain, just behind our forehead, is the anterior prefrontal cortex. And this is a very important role in integration across the brain. And it's one of the last parts of the brain to develop fully in adolescence. So we have problems in our adolescence being more uncontrollable, doing more stupid things, because this part of the brain doesn't really finally grow fully and mature fully until a person's in the early parts of the 20s. It happens early in girls and boys. There's also other areas of nervous activity which are slightly separate from the brain, like the intestines have its own network of nerves, the heart has also its own network surrounding it, and muscles themselves each have their own network of nerves around it, but they're all interconnected with the brain and other nervous systems in the body. Our brain and our mental states colours our experiences. In other words, it makes us see as light colours or heavy colours, depending on our moods. It gives a feeling of pleasant or unpleasant or neutral feelings to what we see and what we feel. So we approach what is pleasant and avoid what is unpleasant. And we evolved in our lives as human beings on this planet to pay more attention to unpleasant experiences. And this negative bias overlooks good news and highlights the bad and creates anxiety and pessimism. And this was needed when humans were developed, when they were living wild lives in small groups, having to be fearful of other humans and other things in nature. So that's the reason why this occurred. Also, we have two types of memory. Explicit memories are conscious recollections of specific events and other information, and they start about after 18 months after birth. So before a child is 18 months old, they don't remember things explicitly as separate events. They have implicit memories. And these are residues of past experiences that mostly below the awareness will powerfully shape the inner atmosphere of the brain, how we feel when something comes up. The brain tilts these implicit memories in a negative direction, even when most experiences are actually positive. So we tend to remember subconsciously, we can say, or deep within our mind, unfortunate things that happened. And stress affects memory. The hippocampus, the first part of the brain which is involved in making memories, is shut off when the excess cortisol circulates, and this occurs in time of stress, when we're upset. Divided attention, when we try to do many things at one time, also increases the amount of circulating cortisol. Traumatic experiences can lead to massive cortisol and adrenaline secretion. So when something terrible happens to us, or we see something terrible happen to somebody else, and in this situation, the memory stops being explicit, becomes implicit. In other words, it becomes to fit the whole atmosphere inside the brain. So these things can, and with adrenaline, can deeply implant fear and pain into our implicit memory. So suffering can be deeply embodied in our brain. And physical reactions involving the sympathetic nervous system and the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis causes suffering to snowball throughout the body. And the parasympathetic nervous system can calm down the sympathetic and hypothalamic activations. Therefore, if you have these sort of feelings of suffering and happiness rolling through ourselves at certain times, certain instances, then we can calm this down by stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system. So to improve our physical and mental health, we can guide the parasympathetic nervous system. And to do this, you can just stimulate it by relaxing, taking some big breaths, touching your lips, being mindful of what's happening in the body. You can use some pictures to look at to help you calm you. You can balance your heartbeat, you can look at your heartbeat and just let it slow down. And you can use meditation techniques. So we have to remember that what flows through our brain changes our brain, sculpts our brain, and controlling our attention is the most effective way to shape the brain. And the three aspects of attention is keeping information in awareness, updating awareness with new information, and seeking the right amount of stimulation. So to improve our attention, we should stay awake and alert, quieten our mind, and stay aware, not just go off dreaming. However, there is an underlying tendency to dream, to engage in narrative processes, and this is called the default mode of resting attention. In other words, when we're not paying attention particularly to something, this sort of mode kicks in. We have all sorts of dreams, all sorts of ideas, like a radio station or TV programs in our frontal part of our brain starting to act and determine what we're thinking. And studies on our brain have shown that people who are not mindful, people who are not aware, trained in awareness, and find it pretty hard to remove this habitual chatter in the brain, which occurs in the prefrontal regions behind the forehead. And expertise in mindfulness meditation, just being present in the present moment, being aware, helps us to stop this sort of chatter going on in our brain, distracting us all the time. And a program of investigation was done on this by teaching people how to be mindful, and they did MRI studies, took pictures of the brain, and found that before being able to be mindful and be aware of what's going on for this training program, they found the parts of the brain that were working most of the time were these parts highlighted in red. That's the prefrontal cortex. All these stories that's going on, making people dream of all these things happening. But when they can control their thoughts, when they practice mindfulness, all that stopped. And the amount in the front of the brain slowed down, and other parts of the brain started kicking in to help them. Also, when you practice meditation on loving kindness and compassion, it was found that large areas of the brain was active. The left side of the brain was responsible for positive emotions. And it was found that you can actually increase compassion, and by just the same way as you exercise your muscle, make it stronger. So right training, we can make people more compassionate, more understanding of other people. So it's very important to remember what flows through our brain actually changes the brain, controls the brain, or controls the connections in the brain. And controlling attention is the most effective way to sculpture the brain or make the connections in the best way for our happiness. Attention can be trained and strengthened like any other mental activity, and mindfulness is well-controlled attention. So mindfulness practice improves the integration, which means you've got improved health and well-being. And mindfulness means being aware of what's happening in the present moment with openness, objectivity and observation. Mindfulness practice reduces burnout, where you can come to learn how to look after yourselves. In other words, as a teacher, you don't just get absolutely exhausted by what's going on in your class. You can control these burnout feelings. Mindfulness meditation can help reshape the neural pathways in the brain. Laughter, joy, and affection leads to neuroplasticity. In other words, the brain connections change to be helpful. Mindfulness training can improve epigenetic deficiencies. That means that it can improve to help the proteins around your genes, if they're deficient in one area because of what's happened in the past, they can rebuild and become stronger to help you. Mindfulness meditation improves immunity and makes you healthier. You can get rid of infections more quickly. And it reduces the destruction of telomeres. That's the end of the chromosomes, so you do not age so quickly. So it has great effects if you control your mind and you be aware of what's going on. So if you can have mindfulness meditation, you can really control what's happening in your thoughts. It's like changing an ordinary spotlight to a laser beam, and it can help develop